Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. We're very excited to be here today with July's author, Phaedra Patrick. Great name, by the way. And I got a lesson on how to pronounce it properly before we were actually live, so that's wonderful. We're so excited that you had the time. You're here in the UK, so as you'll see in the background, it's actually just about to go dark over there you're in Manchester, is that right?
Yeah, just about 10 miles out of Manchester in the countryside.
Perfect. So it's really early on the other side of the world, about 4 o'clock in New York. So let's kick this off with, I'm going to let you just take it away. And if you could start by telling us a little bit about I know you've had a ton of different careers in your life already, but
Yeah.
how you got into writing and kind of what made you switch to become a full-time author, and just if you can start with that, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, sure. So I think I knew I wanted to be a writer when I was 8 years old. I was that young. Except I think where I'm from, a kind of small town, I just didn't think people from small towns like me became writers. So I just kind of ignored it for a long, long time. And it was only till probably my early 20s when I was doing a job that I hated that I thought, no, I need to give it a go. And I think I wrote about 6 novels before I got an agent, and then a further 2 that she didn't manage to get a publisher for me. So this one, The Curious Charms of Arthur Pepper, although it's my debut, it's the first, it's probably, maybe 8th or 9th book that I actually wrote. And I just kept going and going and going because I knew it's what I wanted to do. And I was working 3 years ago in marketing and communications, and I got offered redundancy at the same time as a book deal. So it was too tempting. So I quit my job and became a full-time writer.
That's amazing, I have to say. Also because you've written so many books, and I feel like we all need to read those books.
Nobody needs to read those books. No, I kind of see them as practice runs. There's 2 or 3, and they're all very much about young women, kind of more chick lit, I suppose. And so with The Curious Charms of Arthur Pepper, I wanted to write something completely different this time. Something that was genuine, that I really wanted to write, that meant something to me. And I thought it would make a change to try and write about an elderly gentleman rather than young women.
Okay, fair enough. I noticed on your website it actually says curiously charming fiction. And I wanted to know if this is like a new genre that you're trying to coin, or is this kind of what you'll stick with now, or will you go back to chick lit?
No, definitely not. No, so I think I call it curiously charming fiction because I think it's a little bit different to some fiction. I think it just has that curious element. You kind of, you might have to suspend belief a little bit in places. And I just really like really warm stories, kind of celebrate life and life's random circumstances, things that have happened to me, and lots of my experiences going to the books. And when I write, they kind of really mean something to me, and I hope other people like that too. But I do think they've got that curiously charming element about them, and I really like these kind of warm, quirky, eccentric characters.
So 2 things that just stuck out to me with what you just said is, one, we got to a point in the book club where some of our members were like, please, can we read a book where nobody dies? And I mean, you're completely devoid of death because he, of course, loses his wife in the very first chapter. But
Yeah.
but it is certainly, there's no, like you said, it's a very warm story.
Yeah, I think there's so many books. I don't know about in the US, but in the UK, we've got so many books, psychological thrillers at the moment. You go in the bookshops, they've got the black covers, the big orange capital letters. And I kind of just said the world's got enough writers writing about serial killers, and I don't want to contribute to that. I kind of like reading warm-hearted stories that take you on an adventure with the character. That's what I like to read, and that's what I like to write as well. I think if I'm going to spend a year writing something, I'd like to spend it with kind of nice, warm characters rather than trying to get in the mind of serial killers and murderers and twisted minds. So there's enough of that out there.
Fair enough. And I mean, I think to that point, when you're talking about it, there's a lot of books with so-and-so's wife and so-and-so's sister, and they're all like gripping psychological thrillers. And it's really nice even to just look at your, even your new book, just the titles of them are warm.
Exciting while I was reading it, but now, you know, I need to lie down. I just want to read something nice and friendly and warm. And I think especially with our countries as well, you know, in England we've been going through Brexit and all the politics going on and turmoil in the countries, that, you know, it's nice just to kind of put that to one side and curl up with a cup of tea, or lie in bed reading, or on a beach and you know, read something about nice normal people.
Ladies, for anybody who's with us today, please feel free to type your questions on the right-hand side, or if you want to ask live, you're absolutely welcome to do that. But we do have a chat box, so on the right. Val, will you just write something in there so everybody can see it? Mm-hmm. That is where you can ask your questions, or if you want to do it live, like I said. I have another question for you, and this kind of goes back to the U.S. versus the British feel of the books, because your second book that just came out has two names, and that's very unusual. It's not unusual that it has two covers, but it has two names.
Yeah, I get confused. Yeah. Yeah, so the original title was Rise and Shine Benedict Stone, and that's the name in the US. In the UK, they kind of re-looked at the branding and marketing, and it came out here about 9 months after the US, and they changed the title to Wishes Under the Willow Tree over here. Which is good in theory, but kind of, you know, I'm having to explain it over time, why it's got two titles. But with book 3, that will have the same title in both the US and the UK, so that will be a lot easier.
So they just think it's just the marketing behind it, the idea that it would resonate better with an audience under a certain title in the UK versus a different title in the US.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's just all down to the publisher. It wasn't me kind of going, hey, let's have a different title. It was just a decision that the publisher made. I have to trust that they know what's
Fair enough. You're not like, let's just confuse everybody.
Yeah, I think kind of I think as a writer, you've got to be, you know, you write the books, but we've kind of got to trust that the agents and editors and publishers, you know, they're experts in their job, and if they think that a different title will be better for the book, you know, in a certain country, then you just go with it. So, for example, The Curious Charms of Arthur Pepper's got different titles in different countries. So in Italy, it's called The Man Who Followed His Desires in Italy. And in Germany, it's called The Man Who Hid from His Neighbour and Finally Found His Heart. So, again, not titles I come up with, but the publishers in the different countries know what works for their audience.
That's so interesting, and actually it leads me nicely into Kathleen's question, and she's asking if anybody mentions the parallel of your story to A Man Called Ove. Are you familiar with Mr. Bachmann?
Yeah. Yes, I have. I've not read the book fully. I think I've tried to start it a few times and got sidetracked with writing and stuff. I think that book and The Pilgrimage of Harold Fry kind of just paved the way a little bit for mine. I was fortunate that I kind of wrote mine at a similar time. So when mine came out, those books, whether I wrote them a similar time or slightly after, I don't know. Maybe when mine was in the publishing system, those ones were coming out, so they kind of paved the way a little bit for mine, which was nice. And I think the market was ready to kind of read books about an elder character going on a journey, you know. So those books paved the way for mine.
And your, I think it was your German title, just reminded me of the another book, and the author escapes me, but the gentleman who climbs out the window and does something, but it's got a very long, I think it's a Dutch author.
Yeah, I think it's Jonason. I think he's called. Sorry if I've got that wrong, but yeah, I think he's called that. Yeah. So yeah, there was kind of, I suppose, a spate of just an appetite for stories about older characters going on adventures.
Now, you were just talking about how it's been translated into different languages. Can you tell us a little bit? I think is it 20 languages?
Yeah, 22. So it just got its 22nd language last week in Finland. Yeah, so that's been really interesting journey. So I think it was picked up by 5 foreign publishers before the UK even, and the US. So it went to Italy and Germany and Sweden first. And I think it's kind of just got lots of universal themes in it, about bereavement and marriage. So even if it's a very English book, but if you're in different countries, there's kind of lots of themes in there that just anyone can relate to.
That's so cool. That must have been such I can't even imagine having something that I wrote in 22 languages for such a wide audience.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And I used to read magazines, and you'd see these stories about authors and they're published in 20 languages. And I'd be like, how does that even happen? And even with mine, I kind of imagined one day I might go into a little bookshop in England and it might be there on the bottom shelf. And I just didn't think for a moment that overseas market would pick it up because it is very English, and it's quite English humour. So yeah, I had no idea. I know when my agent said that she said I'm going to submit it to English markets and overseas markets. And I remember thinking to myself, why? Because no one will buy it apart from England. So luckily I was proved wrong. She knows better than me.
That's so funny, because obviously, we do have quite a few English book clubs, but we have our number one market is actually in the US and then Canada. So, and I mean, the kind of everything that has come back to us as far as the book goes has been like a resounding success. Everybody loves it. It's such a feel-good story. I haven't heard one negative comment about the book. So you were definitely wrong. It definitely resonated with the American and Canadians.
Yeah, so it's done best in the US out of all the countries it's sold in. It's done best in the US, and the publishers say it's very rare that English humour translates, but with this one it did for some reason. And whenever I've been out to the US, I think I've been out 3 times now for the book, just whenever I meet readers and booksellers and librarians out there, I just think there's a similarity in sense of humour and personalities, and I think especially values of people in America are very strong. And I think the book has got really strong family values and friendship values and acceptance of people. And I think kind of that speaks to American people. And
Absolutely.
Canada, of course, yeah.
Well, you're talking about and being estranged from your children, and these are certainly themes that everybody can relate to for sure.
Yeah.
Can we talk very quickly about book clubs? So you were very kind, and you went to the Manchester and to the Birmingham.
I did, yeah.
Book club meetings. And you even have on your website discussion questions for book clubs.
Yeah.
How much of a role have book clubs played, do you think, in the success of your book?
Oh, they've been brilliant. They've just been brilliant because, people can booksellers as well. And I think the book clubs, it's not just one person reading it. It's the fact that lots of people can get together and read a book and share their experiences and chat about if they like it or didn't like it. It just really brings people together with that common interest. I just think there's such a positive thing. And for me as well, for your book to be picked up by a book club, it's a real honour. It's not just one person picking it off the shelf. It's kind of maybe 20, 30, 40, or with the Girly Book Club, thousands of people sharing it. So no, it's just a real honour to be selected. And it's a strange experience thinking that lots of people are discussing it you know, around the world. Yeah, how exciting is that for a writer?
Well, that's very good. It was a good. I had my own book club last night, so I went to it, and lots of themes and lots of discussion. Sometimes you worry that when a book is very warm-hearted, it won't be as there won't be as much to discuss, but that was not the case with this book.
Yeah, and I think readers and writers, they've got to kind of find that marriage. You know, nobody's ever going to write a book that every single reader likes. You know, everyone's got different tastes, and but to be honest, if everyone went along to a book club and liked the book, you're not going to have exciting discussions. You know, the discussions come from different points of view and so on. So I always kind of say the readers have got to find the right authors for them, and authors have got to find the right readers as well. And it's when them two meet and they get on, it's like a little marriage that you hopefully kind of continues.
Well, one of the feedback that I receive quite frequently is that we pick books that otherwise our members wouldn't have picked up. So we are really on the lookout just for really, really good books, and we change genres every month. So this, I'm sure, is definitely the case for a lot of people. Not having when they stick to their own genres, then it's maybe not a book that they would have picked up, but absolutely loved it at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think it's really special, isn't it, to get recommendations from people, because some books you don't see. You know, you might just go in a certain bookstore that doesn't have it on display. So actually getting recommendations from other people and sharing it. And I really like it when I get messages on Facebook and they say, I love the book and I've passed it to my neighbour, or I've passed it to a friend, or I know my mum will like it, you know. And I kind of feel like Arthur goes on his journey in the book. And it's also kind of going on a journey with people passing it along, you know, through book clubs or sharing it with friends and other people, you know, and I kind of like that. I think Arthur's got his own life without me now, and he's still kind of journeying on.
I like that thought. Let's dive into actual content from the book now. The first question I have from a member that emailed me said, did you set out from the beginning with all the different charms on the bracelet, or did they kind of fall into place as you wrote the story?
I kind of always knew the elephant would come first, and I knew I wanted a tiger. But from then on, I half plan my books and half is organic. So I am a real planner, but you can't plan like a 90,000 word novel. So I kind of put some structure in place. I kind of look at it like having coat hangers in your wardrobe, you know, so you can put your clothes on. So without them hangers, you've got like a bit of a mess. So I always put my kind of, bit of a structure in place. So I knew that the elephant charm and the tiger charm, but then the others kind of came organically. So I kind of joined Arthur on his journey. Some of the journey I was planning for him, and then other parts of the journey, it was me and him together, wondering where it would take us.
Fair enough. I have a question here from Katie, and she wants you to talk about the supporting characters. She really liked Bernadette and Mike, and she wanted to know what your process is to build depth for supporting characters.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Bernadette came from, this is really strange, but I read a description of someone who had a yellow tooth. And I thought it was really interesting. And actually, Bernadette's character just came from somebody having a yellow tooth. And you kind of ask myself, why has that person got a yellow tooth? Why haven't they sorted it out? You know, and where's it come from? And she kind of, Arthur needed somebody to come into his life and shake it up and question him. And they could go at loggerheads, you know, because I find in books and films, you've always got that opposing character. And I also read some really good advice. I'm an avid reader of how to write books. So I'm always reading them, how to write screenplays, how to write novels, how to write. I'm just reading all the time. And one bit of advice was always give your supporting characters like an eye patch and a limp. So not necessarily, but you need to give those characters kind of, make them very, very memorable in people's minds, you know, the way they look or the way they talk or the way they act, and they all kind of need to support Arthur on his journey or oppose Arthur on his journey. And some of them were there, and some again came organically along the way. But I think one of my favourite is Nathan, the teenager. And my son's 12 now, but I can kind of see those teenage tendencies kicking in, and Nathan was a bit of an extreme version of that, but he was one of my favourites because he was like a typical teenager, but underneath the surface, he'd lost his father and he was there trying to support his mum and trying to forge this strange friendship with Arthur. So I love my secondary characters, I do, but it's a real treat. I feel like they're all friends, and I can have a lot of fun with them as well.
And I don't want to stray too far from the actual novel itself, but I do want to just ask you, on the note you said, the fact that you're continuously reading books on how to write. Now, is there a point where you feel like I know how to write? You've had such success already. I just wonder.
No, I feel like I'm kind of doing like a 20-year degree in writing. No, I find it fascinating, and everyone's got different points of view, and then I read stuff and then forget it, and some of the books are brilliant and really helpful, and I just kind of take my own bits from everything I read. I'll make notes on it, and then I can kind of come up with my own structures and plans and think about how to do it. But I find it fascinating, other writers, how they do it, and most books about how to write are written by other writers, so it's just kind of, I suppose, a bit of a busman's holiday. When I go on holiday, I'll take a pile of how to structure stories, how to tell a story, how to write characters, how to write novels, how to write a screenplay, and I just find it endlessly fascinating and always have done.
I'm sure that will absolutely help you, because you do find that, we know some of our best and most loved authors, they're churning out a book a year or even more, and they do become quite formulaic at times.
Yeah, some do. I hope mine don't. I really do. I really fight not to. I kind of hope that the ideas and characters are original enough to make people, if they read Curious Charms of Arthur Pepper and enjoyed it, I really like them to go and read Rise and Shine Benedict Stone, and my third one would be called The Library of Lost and Found, and I really hope people discover those as well, because they are all very, very different. But can I just say that I know a lot of book club members and readers also like to write as well, and on my website, it's just my name.com, I've put an A to Z writing tips. So all these kind of stuff that I've learned, I do like to share that. I feel I like passing that knowledge on. And if anyone does want to write and not sure where to start, or you just want some good advice, if you go on my website, on the writing tip tag, there's lots of free advice, and it's all friendly and practical stuff.
I love that. That is so amazing that you've done that. I actually came across I have it in my notes, the A to Z writing tips. And I thought
A to Z writing tips.
I thought that was just so amazing that that you're one of the authors that has done so well, and yet you want to help others succeed as well. It's really nice.
Yes, it took me a long time, and if I can sit there and write on my website, and instead of taking somebody else that length of time, if it helps them shorten the process or give them some really good tips, then why not? And hopefully people will read them tips and take some encouragement, or it might make them have a go at it. A lot of people don't have that confidence to give it a try, and so hopefully there might be something on there that sparks something for them, sparks an idea, just might give them that little bit of confidence.
That's very kind. Very lovely.
I would love it in 2 or 3 years' time if people sent a Facebook message and said, hey, I was part of the Girly Book Club and I looked at your writing tips and I've written a novel and I've been picked up by a publisher. Wouldn't that be like an amazing little legacy?
Absolutely. So before we stray too far from the topic, I will go back to the actual content of the book just for a short while. I was with a lovely lady last night who was 61, who had a real problem with Arthur's age. She said 69 is not old, and she wanted me to ask why you made him 69 and not older.
Okay, so there's two reasons, and one, I was kind of, me and my dad were going for a train, and my dad was 69, and I kind of realised that he couldn't run for that train. He could fast walk, but he could not run for that train any longer. And Arthur needs to do some quite physical things in that book. He needs to climb a 9-foot railing and run after a mugger. So I do get some people at book clubs who are a bit offended, you know, especially if they're a very young 69-year-old. But Arthur isn't like that because of his age. He's like that because he's bereaved. His wife has died. And anyone in that situation whose partner of 40 years has passed away are going to be kind of, you know, bereft, upset, in a bad place. So he's not old, he's kind of bereaved. And I also think the book is very well representative of people that age, because people like, you know, 61-year-old lady might home in on Arthur, but there's actually still the glamorous French boutique owner who is the same age. We've got Lord and Lady Greystock, the Bohemian tiger owners, who are older. I think we've got another one as well. So I think there's some great characters who are elder characters, but I do get some kind of 60-odd-year-olds who go, oh, Arthur is decrepit, and you've got bad opinion of 60-year-olds. And but I think if they look at, they listen to my answer or think about it more widely, you know, it's one, Arthur's bereaved, and I think the book is actually really representative of, I think it's got some good older role models in there. And yeah, it was all based around my dad not being able to run for that train.
Very good. I have a question here from Katie, and she said that they talked about it last night in the Columbus, sorry, Katie, I don't know if it was last night, but they talked about it in the Columbus Girly Book Club meeting. They discussed what would be on their charm bracelet, and she would like to know what would be on yours.
No, I have one. So the whole book was actually based on, I've got a childhood charm bracelet, and one day it was a rainy day, and I was telling my son the story behind each of my charms one by one. And there's nothing glamorous or exciting on there. It was kind of birthday presents and so on. But I do have a charm bracelet, and my favourite charms are ones that move, the kinetic ones. So I've got a little silver acorn that opens up to reveal a squirrel.
Aww.
Inside, and I've got a little piggy bank, and the coin goes in and out of the piggy bank. So those are my two favourites for ones that are, but that bracelet that I've had since I was about 7, that kind of inspired the book.
Very good. I like that. I feel like I need a charm bracelet now.
Yeah, lots of people. Yeah, I've kind of had people come to book clubs, or they send me pictures of them wearing the charm bracelets. And again, when I wrote the book, I knew charm bracelets were a thing in England, but I didn't realise they were so widespread across the world, and you know, kind of lots of people everywhere have got them.
Another question for you is, why didn't Miriam tell Arthur about some of her adventures? Why did she keep the whole thing top secret? I mean, we understand certainly about certain ones, but there's some that are kind of innocuous, and she just didn't fail to tell him.
I think the book explains it all. I think her letter to Arthur at the end, and I think Arthur finds out what he needs to know. I think the book kind of explains that all. And if it doesn't, then maybe, you know, maybe it's not a bad thing to have a few little loose ends here and there.
Fair enough. I would agree with that. So tell us now, the Curious Charms of Arthur Pepper have been optioned for a movie, is that right?
Yes, that's right, yes.
So, and we know these things, we talk about movies all the time, and who would play the actor and all of that, but in your mind, do you have anybody to play Arthur?
Yeah, actually the film producers asked me the same question about 2 weeks ago, which was really nice. So yeah, so it was optioned in America. However, if they did make the film, it would be set in the UK. On Facebook, people usually say Bill Nighy. I don't know if you know Bill Nighy.
Yeah, funny.
I like Hugh Laurie. People say no to me, but I kind of wrote the book with Hugh Laurie in mind because he's really a good dramatic actor, but he's really good at comedy as well. I could really imagine him playing Arthur. And I like Sir Mark Rylance. And I think there's just so many good actors out there at that age. It's kind of be spoilt for choice. But yeah, those are the names that kind of come up over and over.
And as far as the actual process, so they are asking you questions. They are moving forward. We know that these things, these film options it doesn't always happen. It takes a long time. So there's no update on kind of like when it would happen or if it would happen.
No. So it's been optioned. That's all we know. It's kind of moving along. There's kind of they're writing a script. They're discussing things, but there is no saying that it will be made. I think lots of writers are in this position and write a book. So I'm kind of got my fingers crossed. It's really exciting to be part of the process, but there's no guarantee it will be made. But I really hope it will. And the TV movie rights have been optioned for Rise and Shine Benedict Stone as well in the US. By a TV movie channel out there, so that's exciting as well. So again, might not come off, but it's just really interesting being part of that process and seeing it move along. So who knows? I will let you know if anything happens.
Can you tell us two more things? One, what is Rise and Shine Benedict Stone about for anybody who hasn't read that one, and what you're working on now?
So Rise and Shine Benedict Stone, I think in a nutshell, I kind of call it chocolate with gemstones. A little bit, if you can picture that. It's about a male character, a jeweller. He's in a bit of a bad place. His jewellery shop's not doing very well and his wife's left him. They can't have children and they can't decide a way forward. And then one night there's a knock on his door and he thinks his wife's returned to him, but it's actually a 16-year-old niece who's landed on his doorstep from America. And she decides to shake up his life. Together they discover an old journal about gemstones, and as Benedict starts to use the gemstones in his jewellery, things start to change in the village for the characters, but also for him and his niece.
Wow. I haven't read it myself. My mother read it. She loved it.
Oh, brilliant. That's great. Yeah, oh, I love it. And that one was actually based on my engagement ring as well. So I've got peridot engagement rings. So lots of the books, lots of the stuff I write is personal to me. And that was all based, that little ring started that one off. And my third book, The Library of Lost and Found, that's in production at the moment. I think it's going to be out in the US in March next year. And that's based on my love of libraries and fairy tale books and growing up and going to the library every Saturday and being able to pick books and reading the books and loving them, but knowing I wanted to write as well. So the third one is all based on libraries and books and stories.
So if anybody has any last questions, please write them in the right-hand side, or you can raise your hand. Oh, there you go. Valerie's on it. Otherwise, my last question to you is, has it got easier?
No, it gets stranger, because I think when you write your first one, you can write it in your own time. I wrote it while I was working, so I wrote it on the train in the morning, on the train coming home from work. And then when you have a book contract, you've suddenly got deadlines and contracts, so it's very, very different experience. It's a big change, you know, from working full time and writing as a hobby to writing as a living. And also with your first one, it's kind of just all from your mind. So you just write what you want. The second and third ones, you've got editors with their opinions in there, your agent's opinions, and you're balancing lots of relationships and listening to lots of different opinions. So it is you who writes it at the end of the day, but it's just finding that different way of working, and each one's very, very different. So I think it's a bit like, and ladies say that each pregnancy they have and each child they have is completely different. I find that a little bit like books, so each one is completely different. Some just come out, some kind of you get really stuck on them, but yeah, all very, very different, but all very special.
Funny that you should mention that because I'm 7 months pregnant. So.
Oh wow! Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, I hope it all goes okay.
Thank you. I hope it comes out easily.
Okay. Yeah, one of the easy ones.
That's what I'm hoping for. Katie, that's a great last question. Katie wants to know if you have any book recommendations for us or any of your favorite stories.
Oh wow! I love a book called The President's Hat by a French writer called Antoine Lorraine, which is really worth a look. I love reading that one. Oh gosh, I wish I kind of swatted up on this beforehand. I can't
Always
have.
a tricky question when you talk about
I read such a wide variety. I get books sent to me by the publisher to read, or I just go into bookshops and look at covers and which one appeals to me. I'm kind of reading and writing for my job all the time. So just such a wide range. Ones I always go back to, I've got favourite books from my childhood, like fairy tale books and gosh, yeah. It's really hard to think. As soon as I get offline, I'll think, yes, I'll be able to think about 10 recommendations. But at the moment, what I will do is if I can think of any, I'll put them on my website, maybe at the bottom of writing tips, as a kind of resources. But I think, writers who tell a good story and are worth reading, I'll pop it on there.
It's funny that you mentioned Anthony Lorraine because we read The Red Notebook actually as a
yeah. Oh, I met him out in Paris. He's so lovely. I read his books and I went into a bookshop in Wisconsin and the owner asked me, what books do you read? And I said, I've read Antoine Lorraine. And he went, oh, I know him. And he put us into contact. And the Charms of Arthur Pepper won an award out in Paris. So I went out to Paris and I met Antoine for a coffee. So that was a really lovely thing to do, and we shared lots of notes and when writers meet, you just ask people loads of questions. And he spoke very good English, luckily, because I don't speak any French.
Very good, very good. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. Thank you for visiting our Manchester chapter. Thank you for visiting our Birmingham chapter. It's really wonderful when the author gets so involved, and you're right there with us on Instagram with every post. So we really love that as well, and we really appreciate your time.
No, I'm honoured that the book was selected, and just thank you everyone for reading it, and anyone who sent photographs or messages. It really means a lot to me. I do try and read every message and try and reply to every message, and no, it's really special that anyone takes the time to read the book and then takes the time to get in touch. It's been so lovely.
Well, thank you, and good luck with all your future novels. I hope they're as successful as your first one.
Oh, thank you.